Today, social media evidence is being roped into the January 6th investigation.
Then, a big concession by Apple for developers. But is it really?
And Netflix dips its toe in gaming, but why?
I'm Stephen Rosenbaum, and this is Future Forward.
I'm Alexis Cordato. Let's launch.
You know, it's weird that this week's show is fun because, like, the universe around us is certainly in all kinds of no fun at all. So I enjoy these three stories, these three chapters, because they're frothy and like almost like a flashback to an easier time in the universe.
Yeah, my stomach's like, I've had a pit in my stomach all day thinking about everyone down south in Louisiana with hurricane. Like, yeah, I just thinking about everyone in the path of the storm and hope everyone's safe.
So here's my request to our listeners who are in the weather profession. I just want to see a chart that says for the last 10 years, number of terrible weather storms per season as a chart, because I can't tell if it's actually measurably worse, which is what I think it is, or if it's just that the media is covering it more, which is not what I think it is.
Right. Yeah.
Because if hurricanes are part of climate change, which logically it seems to me they are, it would just be nice to be able to say that so we can stop pretending that this is wacky weather or kooky weather or whatever the nonsense is.
Right.
Because it's not wacky.
The way things are going to be.
Yeah. But all right, let's start with the January 6th thing, because I kind of think this is a pretty big deal. So Congress is reaching out to get data from
15 social media companies.
And 4chan, 8chan, I never know how to pronounce it, Facebook, Gab, Google, YouTube, Parler, Reddit, Snapchat, Telegram, the Donald.win, whatever the hell that is, TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, and Zello. Holy fucking shit.
Right.
I mean, keeping in mind that some of them, like Gab, for example, claims to be, private, right? Some of these are actually not, some of them, like, if you just read the headline and don't read Facebook and Twitter, you're like, yeah, it's going to be insurrectionists going, hey, I'm bringing my AK, are you bringing your AK? But then when you get into, like, holy shit, 4chan and Gab and Telegram, like.
And is Parler still around?
Well, but even if they relaunched they fired the CEO, and they're run by what's his name, the family that does evil. I want to call them the Mossbachers, but that's of course from White Lotus.
Purdue family?
No, other bad.
So is it sad that it's like, who are the bad families?
Yeah, this is the family that it'll come to me all. Anyway, neither here nor there. The point is, there's gold in them thar hills. I mean, they're gonna some of those companies are not going to respond. I don't know how that works with, when you get a subpoena from the House Select Committee on Investigations, but some of them are going to respond, and they're going to respond, and it's going to be explosive.
Yeah, I wish, hopefully there are going to be like documentaries or things on this in the future, but it's like, it's interesting how they're going to cross-reference and do identity verification across the different platforms, because like 4chan has a lot of anonymity, like you said, Gab, supposedly like private. Whoever is leading the investigation, if they are actually cross-referencing and validating the identity across these platforms, just having the ability to do that is actually very scary.
Or spectacularly fabulous, depending on your point of view.
Right. I guess it all depends on context.
Yes.
So you think that the companies should just give give Congress whatever they want.
So, generally speaking, what these companies have said in the past, Apple as well as others, is we're not giving anything to law enforcement without a subpoena. Right? Well, this is a subpoena.
Yeah.
So, at some point, when a I mean, you can fight it. You can decide to like have your lawyer go against their lawyer, and you can drag your feet, which is the Trump strategy. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a tough time explaining to a judge why, if you have evidence of criminal activity on your servers and the government's asking you to hand it over, you're going to define it as not something. I mean, some of them will, right? The ones that have the super deep pockets will not hand it over. I wish I can remember this. Somebody help me. What's the name of this family? It's the father and daughter that they funded. They're the owners of Cambridge Analytica. I'm just trying to cheat and not search for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, they are famously evil. All right. So since my screen is on the screen share, why don't you just Google Cambridge Analytica family, and then then we'll be able to beat on them a little bit, which will be fun.
Their CEO is Andrew Torba.
No, not CEO doesn't count. Rebecca Mercer. Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Oh, she was also part of Parler.
Oh, yeah. Parler.
Yep.
And then fired the CEO, and because he wanted to actually try and run it like a business. Yeah, they seem to be able to float above subpoenas for some reason, but maybe this one will stick. So I now have to look at what the Donald.win is. Yeah,
these are not this whole list. I've never used 4chan. 8kun. I've never used.
Okay, so now it's America.win. It's been redirected. That's interesting. Donald no longer owns the Donald.win. It's now redirected to America.win. If you're not America first, you're last. Yeah, okay. All right. Anyway, neither here nor there. We're off on a rabbit hole. But at the end of the day, here's the question, and why the January 6th investigation is ongoing. Were there sitting members of Congress and the Senate
participating?
Yeah. Like giving people tours and saying, here's a window, here's a door.
That would be so disturbing. But there's that speculation, right? Like people are saying, how would they have known where to go? Because there are so many areas and access points in the Capitol that only insiders intimately familiar with the building who are there frequently would access.
And there's some evidence that at least a couple of the particular batshit crazy Congress people had been giving tours the day before. And some of the insurrectionists were on those tours, which I thought they had shut down all tours because of COVID.
Right.
I guess you got a special tour if you brought your AK with you in the car. In any case, I think this is great. I think it's very interesting. I agree with you. It opens all kinds of terrible follow-on issues about things that, could be then subpoenaed. But, I have trouble believing that's going to stop them. So, shall we move on to Apple?
Yes.
So I read this twice. I think I understand it. It's kind of a settlement. Do we want to unpack it?
Yeah. So if we remember, I don't even know what time is, but months ago we covered the lawsuit. That was basically, it was like Apple and Basecamp, and the central argument was Apple forcing app developers to get customers to pay exclusively through Apple's payment, right? And not be able to bypass that. Otherwise, your app would be removed from the store. So, for example, in Basecamp's case, they introduced a new email app. And so, if I downloaded the email app for free, and I was using a trial, Basecamp was not allowed to ask me to subscribe and pay outside of the Apple store. I had to do everything natively within the app. And otherwise the app was going to be taken down.
So, all right, let me try the dummy version of that. I go into Macy's and I buy a pair of Nike sneakers, and I pay Macy's, and Macy's pays Nike. And when I want to buy my next pair of sneakers, I'm told by Nike, unfortunately, since I'm a customer of Macy's, I can only buy Nike through Macy's in the future. Something like that. And it's a little bit weird. It's not great, but it's something about who owns the customer.
It's like who owns the customer, and also like the purchase behavior. It'd almost be like if you opened a Macy's credit card and that's how you purchased in the Macy's store. If you wanted to like use a MasterCard or a Visa, and then all of a sudden Macy's was like, no, if you want to shop at Macy's, you need to use our payment.
Yeah, I guess the reason I like my Nike made up description a little better is it's really about whether or not Macy's is the place where I bought something, but I could go buy something else somewhere else. Nike,
but realistically, you're kind of the only place that you can get it.
Right. Well, and I mean, I certainly agree with, and Apple's been doing this for a long time. I mean, they control, whether or not you can communicate with your customers in any way other than throughout, it used to be you didn't get email addresses, but I think that may have changed. But anyway, so on the face of it, this seems like a win for developers.
Because Apple has now agreed to modify its terms of service so that app developers can actually contact you, like via email, about paying through other methods outside of Apple.
So why is this not just a flat out, hands down, hands in the air, do a little jig win for freedom and developers?
Because I think it's more work, and it's not a native solution.
Explain that for those of us who aren't quite as geeky as you are, my dear.
I think it's just like, okay, you have an app, let's say it's Netflix, and you have the Netflix app on your phone, and now you want to upgrade to Netflix, right? If Netflix doesn't want to pay Apple 30% of the cut, what it needs to do is say, Alexa, go check your email. I then have to go to my email. It now has to mark it to me and then take me somewhere else, maybe to a website, to then complete the transaction and do the purchase. So like those two added steps just create friction in the buying process. And so as a consumer, you're probably like, the experience is like you just want the easy pass way to get what you want, right? As a consumer. So the default is probably still going to choose the app store payment, the Apple payment, versus the email and app developer website.
So interestingly enough, I'm the poster child of what you just described. So my film came out as a limited release on August 18th. It was on Facebook. The process of getting your credit card, starting up a new account on Facebook because you probably didn't have a credit relationship with Facebook in the past, and then buying the film was a couple of clicks. Like it was not quite arduous, but it was a couple of clicks. On September 3rd, we go live on iTunes, on Apple TV. You've already got a billing relationship with Apple TV. They've already got your credit card. You're used to buying things, click, click. It will be, it's hard to understand theoretically why 3 clicks is dramatically less painful than 1, but it's a whole bunch of things, right? It's who has my credit card, who's treated me properly, who's not overcharged me or oops, double charged me. Not that Facebook has done that, because they haven't, but
Mhm.
my, I'm used to buying from Apple. I don't buy a lot. I don't buy a lot from, I don't buy songs. I have a bunch of subscriptions through them. But you're exactly right. Like, people, like if you spend your day on a computer, which I mostly do, it's hard to imagine, like, I don't know about you, but like the double, the security on every website that I now go to that sends me a link to my phone that I have to copy and
Two-factor.
paste it. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I probably do that 30 times a day.
Yeah. And for me,
And
like on
it's,
weekends, I don't want to go in my inbox.
no, it's 30 times, it's not an insignificant amount of inconvenience. And, you know,
Mhm.
and each of them, they say, for your security, we've texted you. And I'm like, yeah, okay, for my security, I guess.
Yeah. And so this is, I
So
mean, this is how you can see Apple has been able to argue that the reason they charge a 30% markup is because not only are they giving app developers the distribution, but the consumer convenience is already built in, right? The way Apple might argue this is like, hey, we have a relationship, like a purchase relationship with Apple users. And so if we give them the easy pass where they can just buy on demand, quickly, one click, natively in the app, the more transactions you're going to make, the more conversions, the more revenue. And
you,
app developers are like, well, that's still egregious. 30% is a lot. Give us the ability to give consumers another way to pay that doesn't involve paying you 30%.
so does that mean that the developers are going to do a 30% price reduction if I buy directly from them?
I mean, that would be a smart thing, right? It's like, oh, buy through email and maybe, save 20%.
Yeah, until they get you used to renewing through them, and then
Renew
that,
it, and then they
yeah,
charge you the regular
30%.
markup.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So the bottom line is consumers are going to pay the same amount long term, either way. Um, and at the end of the day, this really probably comes down to a handful of big app developers, because there's some, I tried to understand it. I read the article twice. There's some under $1 million special pass
Mhm.
compromise thing. I just got tired and
Mhm.
stopped reading. Um,
Well, again, you can imagine that for the likes of, say, Netflix, Amazon, whatever big retailers, like the the markup isn't ideal, but at the same time, what these companies would spend to acquire customers through ads in other channels isn't cheap either. And so for them, it's just part, it's like built into their costs. It's actually the smaller startups, again, less than $1 million in revenue, where it's a real struggle. It might actually mean, does your startup have, 6 months of runway or 18 months of runway?
I One of the things Apple has done almost from the day it was founded until today is it somehow doesn't appear to the outside world to be a big company. It doesn't have that big company kind of like, it doesn't, it all of its interactions as a consumer, the type isn't too tightly put together, and the language is kind of friendly, and the service front end, if you need to call in and get support, is pretty friendly, and the Apple Store is pretty friendly. So like, what nobody knows and no one writes about is that, it is a big company that is, like all big companies, makes policies that have big impact.
But one of the
Have,
reasons they do that psychologically is Apple never does big sales. And if they do any kind of promo or discount, it's like 10% max and only during the holiday season, right? It's like,
So
and it's because every single luxury product or brand, right, always comes with premium pricing, and it always creates this perception of scarcity, right? Like people don't drive luxury cars because they can't afford them. And it's wild because Apple, their products are not cheap. Every phone, tablet, laptop, desktop is more expensive than competitors on the market. And it's crazy though, because the iPhone is not a niche luxury product.
so Pam's birthday was last week. And so I said, I picked out a couple of presents. I said, what do you really want? And she paused and she said, it's a little expensive. And I'm like, no, tell me what you really want for your birthday. And she's like, I really want an Apple Watch, which totally shocked me because
Mhm.
for whatever reason, I mean, I'm an Apple fanboy, but like I've never thought about. And so we went, it was interesting. We went online, we went to the store and we looked, but you really can't, they're under glass and they're kind of hard to, like, they don't really let you touch them. And then we went online and we figured out the difference in price, and there's not much difference. And we figured out the one she wanted and the band and all that. And we got to the end and it said it's available. They'll ship it to you in 2 weeks. This was on a Sunday, about 1 o'clock. They said, or for $9 extra, they'll deliver it to you tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, hand delivery in 12 hours for $9, done. And
Yeah.
text came the next morning, it's on the way. Then it was 2 blocks away. Then it was near your front door. Then it was, I mean, incredibly seamless. I don't know how they did it because you needed the right wrist size. You had to measure your wrist, and you needed the right band size and the right design. Like it was a bunch of variables that had to be pulled. Maybe they had them all stacked
And
up.
isn't it wild that like it's totally possible that there's no such thing as a 2-week wait.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But just creating that perception makes paying an additional $9 feel not only like a convenience, but special. I mean,
no. It was
like,
well, part of it is, that for $9, some delivery guy has to get on a bike, go to the store, pick and pack, or get handed the box, ride up to your door, leave it with the doorman, or buzz upstairs. Like, I mean, like there's no way anyone made money on that $9.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is, the headline from The Verge is too big to change, which is of course the take on too big to fail. But maybe both. And there is a new iPhone coming out in the fall. iPhone 13 originally, but now I think they're calling it something else. But if it doesn't have something snazzy, I don't know. I might be perfectly happy to go another year with mine.
I usually skip generations. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the app store is interesting because, like, you can sort of argue, like, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But a lot of people would say, oh, there's a lot that's broken. I don't know.
All right. Which brings us to our final story of the day. Let's talk about Netflix. So, first of all, Netflix has made mistakes in the past. It is not above making mistakes. I'm feeling like Netflix and gaming might be another one, like when they split the company in half and gave themselves 2 names when they were getting out of the DVD business. And
I forgot about that.
I mean, I'm not a gamer, so maybe I should check with some of our audience members who know the gaming space better. But so, first of all, gaming on phones. We were talking about this a little before the pod. Gaming on phones is not the same as gaming on a kick-ass, desktop.
Yeah.
Right. So gaming on phones is more like novelty gaming. It's like, what do they call it? Not light, but it's something like light. And the 2 games that they're testing are both pre-existing Stranger Things mobile games. And they're testing it in Poland. So I'm not sure what do you learn from a test? The uptake is X.
Yeah, you learn it from a cross-marketing standpoint. Like if fans of Stranger Things, like what is the Venn diagram of viewers of Stranger Things and players of Stranger Things? And what is that overlap? And how do you move one group into the other? Right? Like how viable of an engagement ecosystem can they create with their very popular titles? Because if it works, then you could say, okay, there's going to be, I don't know, there's going to be The Witcher, and The Witcher is already a game, right? Um, Again, entertainment as a category is huge. And so gaming as a subset of entertainment, anything they can do to drive deeper, more meaningful customer engagement is a win for them. So I understand it in practice. I guess I just don't understand the screen experience, and I might just be too old. Like I don't watch Netflix on my phone. I watch it on a TV. Maybe kids do on their phone, but like I also thought that kids multitask where they want to like text their friends and watch TikTok while they're watching TV.
So I watch Netflix on my iPad
Oh,
and
really?
do other things. Yeah, and do other things.
Yeah, like you have it on the side as like a second
Yeah,
screen, right? That's what I mean. Like
but
I just
but
feel like mobile is the thing that throws me here.
so I'm gonna play inside Netflix fictitious spy that I'm not, and say maybe this is a symbol of something far worse, which
Hmm.
is holy shit. We're looking at Disney and Hulu and Showtime and Apple or an ABC, whatever, like an NBC Peacock, and we're like, there's no matter how we do the math, there's no way that we're not going to see higher rate of subscriber churn in the video streaming space. There's
Right.
just too many competitors, and everyone's sampling everything right now. I mean, I'm sampling Showtime, HBO Max, blah, 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 blah. Net. There's no way that we're not gonna, have
Hmm.
some kind of a plateau, and we need to be in another. And by the way, they're not talking about charging for gaming, right? So if we add games into the offer for the same $11 a month, does that dramatically change the churn, the subscriber churn, or
Right.
meaningfully enough that it's worth it to acquire games and
Mhm.
and pay, we assume, a significant fee for them?
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, what's noteworthy here is that these two games already exist off platform, meaning like they're available not on Netflix.
But also, you know, back in the day, which is like 12 seconds ago, people that made films and TV series made them with some kind of a profit sharing arrangement. They weren't work for hire. They were making them and then Netflix came in, paid huge premiums to acquire TV series and films, but with a flat, like, you're not getting into our books. You're not getting paid based on audience. You're not getting paid. You're, it's a big check, but it's one time.
Right.
I wonder how game developers are going to feel who have similarly their whole business designed around, when games do well, we do well. And Netflix comes in and says, we're going to pay you a premium, but we're going to
And
own
give
it.
you licensing clearance, right, to develop the game.
The Netflix or
Right, like
who
if
gets,
Netflix develops a show and they
oh,
own the IP, instead of going to a regular game developer and working out a licensing deal and promotion, merchandise, whatever, they they have the leverage, right? Because they own the
that,
content.
yeah, I don't think that fits my analogy though, because I mean, Netflix is not in the production business. They don't. There's not a single, when it's called a Netflix original, that just means that they bought it from
Oh, they
somebody.
acquired it. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not like a
or
studio.
they put money in before it was made, so it's not an acquisition. It's an original, but they're not a studio. I mean,
Okay.
they're not giving no. Well, I don't know that for a fact, but I mean, they're not the same as a film studio. But it certainly could be. Again, it would be fun to have somebody leak to us a bunch of the spreadsheets of all the different ways games could roll out on the Netflix platform.
Yeah.
But I'm going to argue that they're dipping their toe in gaming is actually a symbol of concern from them, that they need to be in a new category, which is not a good thing. That's my 2 cents. But we are out of time. So next week we will be back with more interesting, frothy things to talk about that are hopefully not about death or destruction or the end of the world as we know
it. Yeah.
See you next week.
See ya.